Dale Earnhardt Jr. just lit the fuse on a bomb that's got every garage in NASCAR buzzing, and he aimed it straight at Joe Gibbs Racing. When one of the most respected voices in the sport says something's not right, you stop and listen. And when that same voice sounds shocked, confused, and just a little suspicious, you start asking questions no one at JGR seems ready to answer. Let me set the stage. Chris Gabehart is no ordinary name. This guy helped Denny Hamlin win 22 races, including back-to-back Daytona 500s. He made championship 4 appearances routine. You don't get that kind of resume by accident. He was the brain behind the wheel, the strategist, the motivator, the rock. Joe Gibbs Racing trusted him so much, they took him off the pit box and promoted him to director of competition last year. That's not just a title. That's being the guy who shapes the future of the entire team. And now, he's gone. Vanished. No thank you. No goodbye. No, we wish him well. Just silence. When the news broke, it wasn't through some polished team press release. It came from a reporter outside a courthouse. No, that's not a metaphor. Jenna Fryer, standing on the sidewalk, just drops the news like a brick. Chris Gabehart has left Joe Gibbs Racing. That's when the silence got louder. Denny Hamlin, the man who spent 6 years winning with Gabehart, was asked about it. His answer? No comment. That's it. Nothing more. Not a word of praise, not a note of appreciation. Just a wall of quiet. So Dale Jr. stepped in, and he brought the fire. On his podcast, Dale said what everyone else was too scared to say out loud. Yeah, it's a big loss for JGR, and it kind of makes you wonder, what the general temperature is, I guess, when a guy like that's going to leave the building. Think about that. What the general temperature is. That's Dale Jr. code for something stinks in that building. He kept going, laying it out in plain terms. Gabehart had been promoted to director of competition, a role Dale called very critical, important. He even said, "Man, this guy is perfect for this." And yet, here we are. Less than a year later, the perfect man for the job has packed up and disappeared. Why? Let's rewind a bit. Gabehart didn't just run Denny's car. He was also pulled in to help with Tai Gibbs, the grandson of Joe Gibbs, the future of the organization, the kid everyone's waiting to become the next big star. Tai was flailing mid-season. The number 54 car was sinking fast. That's when Gabehart stepped in, not as a crew chief, but as a lifeline. Dale Jr. saw it clearly. He said, "They kind of found themselves in a bit of a bind in the mid-season with the 54 and Tai. And I think he was just kind of, hey man, I'll come in here and see if we can't get this thing headed in the right direction." And you know what? It worked. Tai suddenly started showing signs of life. He won the in-season challenge and took home a $1 million bonus. He got a runner-up finish in Chicago. Top 5s and top 10s started rolling in. That turnaround? That was Gabehart. But here's the twist, and the tension. Dale Jr. wonders if Gabehart wanted to be pulled back into that grind. He said, "I don't know that he chose or wanted to go do that, but he did it out of responsibility maybe." You feel that? That's where the gears start grinding. Was Gabehart really allowed to focus on the bigger picture? Or was he yanked into a babysitting role, forced to clean up messes for the boss's grandson? Let's be real. You don't make someone director of competition just to use them as a temporary crew chief. That's like hiring a general and asking him to fix your broken Jeep. It doesn't add up. And if you think the story ends there, think again. Rumors started swirling that Gabehart was heading to Spire Motorsports. A smaller team, yes, but one with big money backing and big plans. A place where someone like Gabehart could build something from the ground up. But then, another twist. Spire announced their crew chief lineup. Gabehart's name wasn't on it. Now no one knows where he's going. He left one of the biggest jobs in the sport, and he has no public destination. He just walked out of the room. And Joe Gibbs Racing still hasn't said a word. No tribute, no tweet, not even a thanks for the memories. That's not just weird, that's a message. And in part 2, we dig deeper. Because if this is the crack on the surface, what's hiding underneath? Let's talk about what this silence really means. When a top-level leader like Chris Gabehart leaves after just 1 year in a critical role, and no one inside Joe Gibbs Racing says a single word, that's not just a red flag, that's a fire alarm. Teams don't stay quiet unless they're trying to hide something. And Dale Jr.? He's not buying the silence either. He doubled down on his podcast, repeating what we're all thinking. I was certainly shocked. You don't say that unless something feels off. And if Dale Earnhardt Jr. is shocked, you better believe it didn't go down the way JGR wanted us to think. So what could it be? Some people in the NASCAR garage are whispering about family overrides. That's a phrase crew chief Tommy Baldwin brought up. And it's not just noise. In the racing world, it means decisions being made not by the experts, not by the competition department, but by family members, by people at the top who don't get their hands dirty in the garage. Sound familiar? Tai Gibbs, grandson of Joe Gibbs, is the face of the future for JGR. But let's be honest, he hasn't earned that spot on pure merit yet. He's winless in the Cup Series. He's shown flashes, sure, but inconsistency has been the real story. And when the team was in trouble, it was Gabehart who had to step in and fix it. Not because it was his job, but because the family needed it done. So ask yourself, how long does someone like Chris Gabehart, a championship-level crew chief, a strategic mind, a proven leader, put up with that? How long before the guy who's supposed to lead the whole company starts to feel more like a bodyguard for the heir? Maybe that's what broke him. Dale Jr. hinted at it again when he said, "I would assume his director of competition role would have been superseding in the long-term objective." In other words, Gabehart was supposed to build the big picture, long-term gains, not emergency babysitting. And what if he got tired of being pulled back down to fix problems that weren't his? Problems that might not have existed if the team wasn't trying to fast-track a young driver into greatness before he was ready. That's how big teams break. Not in one crash, not in one fight, but piece by piece, brick by brick. And here's the part no one's ready to say out loud. What if Gabehart leaving is just the first crack? JGR has been a powerhouse for years. Champions, Daytona wins, a top-tier organization. But even the best teams can rot from the inside if leadership stops listening, if decisions start getting made in the boardroom instead of the garage. And now, everyone's watching. The silence from Joe Gibbs Racing isn't just awkward, it's telling. There was no public praise for Gabehart's 13 years of service. No words from Joe Gibbs. No tweet from the official JGR account. No message from Tai. Not even a thank you from Denny Hamlin, the man who owes a big chunk of his legacy to Gabehart. What does that tell you? It tells you this wasn't a peaceful exit. This wasn't planned. This wasn't mutual. This was a breakup. And here's what might be worse. No one knows where Gabehart is going next. Not even Dale Jr. knows. And that makes this whole thing feel like a storm building in the distance. Quiet, but deadly. If Gabehart really does land at a rising team like Spire, or even somewhere bigger, watch out. Because the man who helped make Denny Hamlin elite, who saved Tai Gibbs from spiraling, who ran the strategy behind the scenes, he now knows every single detail of how JGR operates. And now he's outside the gates. That kind of knowledge in the hands of a rival? That's a weapon, a blueprint, a ticking time bomb. So what happens next? Do the cracks at Joe Gibbs Racing start to spread? Does Tai Gibbs struggle without Gabehart's guidance? Will we ever hear the real reason why one of NASCAR's top minds walked away? Or will this all stay buried behind closed doors until something even bigger explodes? You tell me, is Joe Gibbs Racing still the empire it once was? Or is this the start of its downfall? Let me know in the comments, because something tells me this story isn't over yet.